We have got to have a talk about hard drives. Why I don't trust them. You probably shouldn't either. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, I'm Cool Caparoon. Thank you for stopping by for another video. Welcome to one of the new shots. The room's done. I'm still setting stuff up, and the video's coming very soon, so subscribe. But I'm really pumped, and it sounds really, really good in here. Okay, hard drives. A little over 6 years ago, I was still working out of an apartment bedroom here in Nashville. It was before we had built this house, before I had moved into this studio, and I had a hard drive crash, and I lost like 3 months worth of work. And it was one of the most traumatizing experiences of my music career. There's only two instances that stood out. The first is when I lost my studio, my commercial studio in Peoria, Illinois, when we all got kicked out of that building so it could be redeveloped into condos. That's the most traumatizing. And the second most traumatizing was when I had this hard drive crash 6 years ago. And so what I want to do is today I want to walk you through what happened and how I avoid it, and some new things, some new gear that I've implemented, and some new work flows that I've implemented to make sure that I never lose data ever again. And I hope that this will help you. So I'm working along and I have a solid state hard drive that is my main work hard drive that all my Pro Tools sessions are on, all the audio files get saved on that hard drive. And then I had a second hard drive that was my backup hard drive. And I was using Time Machine on Apple to back up. And every night it was supposed to run a backup and clone the hard drive. So I'm trucking along, and all of a sudden one day I go to open a session to finish some work on it, and it doesn't exist. It won't open. The hard drive, like I think I could see it, but like nothing would open in it, and I couldn't see any of the files on it. I can't remember exactly how that went. But I had, it's the first and only full-on panic attack I had in my life. My wife was 4 or 5 months pregnant, and I was just absolutely killing myself trying to get ahead so that way when the baby came, that I could take some time off. And come to find out, the hard drive crashed, and I lost about 3 months worth of work. I took the hard drive to a tech lab here in Nashville, and they tried to get into it and they couldn't. They sent it to another bigger lab in like Ohio or somewhere, and they couldn't get into it. And they sent it to a third lab in LA, I think, somewhere in California, and they could not get into it. Now, I'm sure I'm gonna get some of this wrong because I'm not a real tech guy, but basically what happened is on a solid state hard drive. There are two types of hard drives. Let's start there. There's a solid state hard drive, and there is a regular hard drive that has a spinny disk in it. A solid state hard drive stores things in, this is what they've told me, stores things in a three-dimensional space. It's like if you were to just take a bucket and you were to put random stuff in the bucket. And then there's a mechanism, a reading mechanism that keeps track of where all of these ones and zeros are inside of this bucket. And that reading mechanism, when you open up a session or you open up a file or go to look at a picture that's on that hard drive, it keeps track of where that data is, and then it goes and retrieves that data. And that's how a solid state hard drive works. Now, a regular hard drive has literally a spinning disk in it. And on that disk, there is a physical location where your data is stored. And it's kind of easy to get to. So it doesn't have to keep track of where the data is. It just reads the data on the disk. And because of this means that when solid state drives crash, they are generally not recoverable. No one ever told me this. I'd never heard this. I'd never read this, but they're generally not recoverable because when that mechanism goes bad, that data is still in that hard drive, but there's no way to organize it and categorize it, which means you now have a paperweight. Now, when a regular hard drive goes bad, there's a couple different ways to handle, which we're going to get into that because I've just had that happen. On that hard drive, I had, I think, 3 EPs that were almost finished, but the masters were not done, so I couldn't just have the masters. And like I probably was working on 15 different clients at the time that hard drive crashed. Now, obviously, it's not the client's fault that this happened. So I do the right thing and I pay for all the session players again. And I put all the time back into it again. And I just eat it. And I think it took almost 6 months. It took a really long time to work my way back out of that hole. And financially, I was dying. And like from a schedule perspective, I was dying because I also, since I'm not making money off of redoing all that, I also had to continue taking on new clients in order to pay my bills. Otherwise, I was literally going to starve to death. It took a lot of hard work, but I got through it and I redid everyone's projects and I repaid every session player and rehad all the sessions and had all the singers back in. I literally redid everything and I got through it. But from that moment on, I've been like, this can never happen again. And so what I've done since then, which is not what I do now, we're going to get to that in a minute. What I've done since then is I have always taken the I still work off a solid state hard drive because they are way, way faster. Everything runs smoother and it's way faster to run your sessions from a solid state hard drive. But they're clearly not safe. So what I do is every day or every couple days, I clone that solid state drive to a regular hard drive. So that way, whatever's been done in the past 24, 48, 72 hours, I'm never more than 3 days behind to get back to zero. So that's what I've been doing ever since. Well, fast forward to just not very long ago, a week or two ago, I had another hard drive go bad, a regular hard drive this time. Same sort of thing happened. The computer would not even see the hard drive. So luckily this was a regular hard drive. So I knew that I could at least recover this even if I had to send it to a lab and they had to take the hard drive apart. Now, I think what most people don't realize is there's only a few places that make actual hard drives. So inside your hard drive, regardless of who made it, it probably looks like this. Just a regular old hard drive. This one's made by Western Digital. Now, luckily, this did not go bad. What actually went bad is the USB controller that your cable plugs into inside the housing. So luckily I had a few of these, so I was able to swap this hard drive into another identical housing and get my data off of it. But I've come up with a solution for this, and then we're going to get on to what my new workflow is going to be. Come up with a solution to this. Someone on Instagram suggested this to me. They did not sponsor this. No gear companies that I'm going to talk about in this are sponsoring this. This is a Newer Tech Voyager S3. And what it is it's literally just a dock that you can plug any random hard drive into. It's a SATA drive dock. So now I can just store these as backups, and if I ever need to get back into them, I have a dock to do that. So I'll put a link to this down below because for all my backup hard drives, I have, 10 or 15 of these that are full from over the years, and I keep everything. I'm adamant about keeping everything. So now I will be able to get back into any of them regardless of if they actually go bad, because this part rarely goes bad. And even if it does, there's literally a spinning disc in here that they can take out and recover. So that is my backup, like worst case scenario. But let's talk about what I'm going to do moving forward. So the general rule of thumb is if your data is not stored in 3 places, it is not safe. It has to be stored in 3 separate locations in order for it to actually be safe. That's the rule that we all follow. So, that I'm now going to follow. So I'm going to continue working off of a solid state drive. I have a G drive and some SanDisk solid state drives. I don't think I really have a preference. I would not use the Samsung T5 drives because those do have a reputation for going bad. The Samsung T7 drives seem to be just fine. So the only solid state drives I would say avoid is the Samsung T5, but not even Samsung as a brand, just that particular drive. So those will still be my main work drives that my Pro Tools sessions will be hosted on. Now, it's time for a RAID. And I've never had a RAID before. For those of you that don't know, this is a RAID. So what this is, and there's a bunch of different styles of these. This is a Glyph, which one's this? The Black Box Pro RAID. Now what this does is there are literally 2 hard drives in it, and it will write simultaneously the exact same data to both hard drives. So that way, it's redundant. All of my backups will be redundant. Now, this particular one, first of all, Glyph makes some of the best hard drives on planet Earth. From a reliability standpoint and from a durability standpoint, I do trust these hard drives more than anything else. I've had a couple of them in the past, and they're not the cheapest option, but I do believe that they're probably the best. Now, this particular one goes up to 7,200 RPM. Now, that is an important distinction if you're gonna use regular style hard drives as your work drive, because that RPM is important for your latency. So if you don't have a hard drive that can go to up to 7,200 RPM, then you're going to deal with more latency. And so that's a really important factor. You always want 7,200 RPM hard drives. But how I'm going to handle this moving forward, let's talk about RAID, for instance. There's RAID 0 and there's RAID 1. Hard drives like this will do either. So this is either a 40 terabyte RAID 0, which means it's just a 40 terabyte hard drive, or it's a 20 terabyte RAID 1, which means it will redundantly write 20 terabytes worth of data on both hard drives. So that way I have up to 20 terabytes backed up in full. Now, again, they did not send me this. This video is actually sponsored by Sweetwater because they sponsor all of my videos. But Glyph did not send me this, nor did they pay me to say this. But before we get on to my full rest of my workflow, there are links down below for this stuff. And those links do go to Sweetwater. And anytime you guys need any piece of musical gear or hard drives or computers or anything else, you can jump on any one of my videos. You can click on any one of the links in the description below. And once you're on the site, you can purchase anything that you were gonna buy anyway. It costs you absolutely nothing extra, but it goes a long ways to help support this channel, help me keep making content like this. I want to do my very best to help you guys avoid the mistakes that I've made. It's a big passion of mine here on this channel. So thank you guys for using those links anytime you need to purchase anything at all. And thank you, Sweetwater, for sponsoring this video. So I will be running this as a RAID 1 configuration. So my plan is to still have my solid state hard drives as my work drive. I will still clone it to this drive at the end of every day or every 2 days or every 3 days. And it kind of depends on what I've worked on, right? Like if I have a client fly in from out of state and we did a full day of vocals and they're leaving, that needs backed up right now because I don't want them to have to fly back to redo stuff. However, if I'm just editing a vocal and that's all I've done that day or tracking some guitars, I'm not as concerned about the backup side of it. Solid state work drive, and then I will clone that drive to this RAID drive every day, every 2 days, every 3 days. And then I will also, here's an important part of it, because as projects get completed, I don't want to have to keep hard drives, redundant hard drives of projects forever. So the way that I'm going to handle this moving forward is every single client is going to get a download link to their entire project. And when the project is completely done, the masters are done, there's nothing else to do, they're going to get a download link, and it's up to them to download it and store it for themselves. And then I will also keep a copy on a single hard drive. And so that way there are at least 2 locations for old completed sessions, and that should be redundant. That's redundant enough for me. It is surprising how often I've had to go back 3, 4, 5 years into archive hard drives and get some tracks or someone needed something stemmed out, or like back in the Guitar Hero days, client hit me up like 8 years after our album, and they're like, hey, we actually need stems for this because it's going to go on Guitar Hero. So, you should keep everything, every single project you should keep. And then there's another way that you could do this if you're not doing a RAID system, or if you don't have a RAID system yet until you can afford to buy one, because I do think this is the best method. You could have a work drive, a backup drive, and then some cloud-based thing, whether it's Google Drive or Dropbox or whatever you choose, and then clone that song folder or that session folder to your backup drive and to the cloud every day or every 2 days. I'm no longer going to rely on automatic backups, because it failed me once. I didn't realize Time Machine wasn't working, and that really, really screwed me. So I will do my own backups every time. Be diligent about that stuff. Don't let yourself end up in a situation like I was, where you're coming out of pocket many, many thousands of dollars to pay bands and players again, and losing 3 months worth of work, of clients' work. That was a truly awful situation. So this is what I'm doing now. I hope it helped you. Again, I'll put links to this down in the description below, and to a whole bunch of other options. But thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.